All right, back here on our Bella Early Edition. Patriots officially wrapped up their training camp yesterday, even though they still have 2 more preseason games and joint practices with the Raiders next week. That is not going to stop us, though, from handing out some camp superlatives. We got Tommy, Curran, Phil, Perry, and WEEI's Andy Hart. Let's deep dive the Patriots after 3 weeks of training camp. All right, guys, you guys were down there day in and day out. So we're going to start with Tom E. Curran. The biggest story of camp for you was?
Biggest story of camp for me was quite simply the offensive pivot. The New England Patriots switching to an offense after 20 years of great success, Andrew and Phillip. When we see a team that set records, created legends, became the greatest franchise in NFL history for a period of 20 years, and then they moved to something else with 2 guys teaching it who haven't really coached offense before. That's a big story, guys.
The biggest story for me is the story that sort of is simmering beneath the surface of all of these other stories that we've been talking about for months, right? It's what is the progression of your second-year quarterback who showed a lot of promise last year. And I keep coming back to something that our friend Bucky Brooks of NFL Media has talked to Tom and I about before. The 3 Ps, right? That's what every young quarterback needs to succeed. Playmakers, play callers, and protection. I think he has playmakers, Andy. I don't know about the other 2. And so my takeaway of the biggest story of camp for me is we still don't have a ton of answers in terms of his actual progress on the field because of the new offense, because the offensive line has been a mess. I don't think we really know what kind of leap he's taken in year 2 yet.
So I think my story would be a combination of the 2, the new offense, max development, and just how bad the offense looked through the first 2 weeks, 2+ weeks of training camp, when it looked bad if it was a high school offense coming together with a freshman quarterback and a first-year coach who was 21 years old, who was on the team like 2 years before. That's how bad it was. And I was stunned. I've never seen ineptitude on a Patriots field, practice field, game field, like we saw from the offense on certain days during this training camp. And you knew there'd be change, and change is uncomfortable, as Matt Patricia would say. It was borderline uncomfortable to watch how bad they were to open camp.
It is crazy when you think about how, like, we've never talked about the offense before in the terms of like, it's kind of new. Things don't look that great. You're always talking about players, individual positional battles. And this year it's about an entire offensive unit. And it's all we've paid attention to, which leads me to my next question, Phil. What's been the most under-the-radar story for you?
Well, to me, there are some under-the-radar offensive tweaks. So I know that's the big story that everybody's focused on. But when we talk about those, we usually talk about the Shanahan-style influence or maybe some of the communication up front. But a couple of things that I've seen that I think are really interesting and could really impact the trajectory of this season. Number one, Mac Jones mentioned this yesterday, the fact that the team is starting to implement some things that he likes, some things that he has done before, not the team, but he. And I read into that and I say, we're going to see some more RPO. Is this going to look like Miami in some ways with Tua Tagovailoa? I don't think it's ever going to go that hard in that direction, but we've seen that this camp, unlike we have in previous camps. I also think Jonnu Smith, they're working so hard, Tom, to get him involved in a creative way every single day, and I think he's going to make a real impact this year.
I'm going with 6 of the 10 players drafted this year seem to be having positive net impacts on the team. That, to me, is one of the – you got first, Cole Strange has been out there virtually every day. You got the Jones boys, Marcus and Jack have been playing very well. Help me, Phil. Tyquan Thornton, the second-round pick. Who's the dude?
Sam
the big
Roberts.
Dude, Sam Roberts. And give it up for Bailey Zappi last week. So
I thought you
another
were going
good
Brendan
draft.
Schooler there for sure.
No, I'm not going school doggy. But all of those guys, it's another good draft. And those guys aren't just okay. They're not just, hey, when they're out there, they're making plays. The first 4 guys, Strange, Thornton, the 2 Joneses, impact guys so far.
I like how you pivoted there because you had the same answer as Andy Hart originally. Andy, what is your under-the-radar story?
I think this defense might be pretty good. And I know everybody has a bad taste in their mouth from the end of last season where, okay, you couldn't make the Bills punt. Well, maybe the Bills are really good and maybe you don't measure up to them. But this defense against the new look offense was dominant at times, especially the front 7, especially Christian Barmore, Matt Judon, and some of those guys. And then you got into joint practices with the Carolina Panthers. Okay, not a great team, but they're an NFL team with a different jersey on. And Christian Barmore and company dominated them. The safety position, deep. The front is good. I think you may have more capable cornerbacks than maybe we gave you credit for during the offseason. So I know this defense was top 5 in points allowed last year, and then it fell off the map, and people were like, oh, they're not that good. They're paper champions. This year, maybe they start out as paper champions, and then at some point we realize maybe they're pretty good.
All right. So does that mean one of your biggest surprises, which is our next superlative, Andy Hart, is a guy on defense, or did you go elsewhere?
I'm going to go with Tyquan Thornton. And some of this is history. We've been beaten down for like 20 years that a Patriots draft pick at wide receiver is going to stink. Whether he came in the first round, the second round, first day, second day, he's not going to be good. He's not going to get it. And I know a lot of that was under Tom Brady, and maybe there was some dynamics there at play. Tyquan Thornton has been phenomenal. And I thought he was just going to be a speed burner. And wow, he runs a 4.2. Look at him go in shorts, and he's skinny. And when he gets hit, he falls down and breaks. I've seen none of that. I think he's pacing, trending toward a future, and a future that's not too far off of being this team's number one receiver, their best receiver. He can run deep and run under the ball, but he can also cut and make catches and make plays.
Yeah. Tyquan Thornton was mine as well, because I figured him having an apprentice year based on everything we've seen. We get that receiver PTSD that we've had over the years of guys coming in, making no contributions at all. But with Thornton, what I love about him is, yeah, he runs like a 3.2 40, but he also can throttle back and throttle forward and use quickness. It's just not all fast all the time. So I said, Phil, 20 catches, he'll be having a good year.
Oh, boy.
He's going to be a bigger part of this.
Yeah, you're going over there. For me, though, it's another rookie. And this is a rookie who, while I am very excited about Tyquan Thornton's potential based on what we've seen, there's another rookie who looks like he might start week one, and I'm not sure Thornton is there just yet. The biggest surprise for me is Marcus Jones. The slot corner out of Houston has been phenomenal. And he's running with the starters, really, for the last 2 or 3 weeks now. And he's been so good that I think Bill Belichick has looked at his defense and said, what's the way for us to get our best 3 corners on the field? Let's take the guy who's been our slot corner for years in Jonathan Jones, see how he looks outside on a more consistent basis, just so we can get this kid out there playing a little bit more often. So that to me has been the biggest surprise at 5'8", that he's coming in and he's not just going to be a punt returner, although I think he might do that too. He might end up being your top star on this defense, which is what they call their slot position.
Who have you been most disappointed in?
I think the answer.
Superlative number one,
yeah,
biggest disappointment.
I think the answer here is pretty easy. It's Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne really just has not been all that involved. The top 3 receivers, Tom, for the better part of the last month have been Nelson Aguilar, Devontae Parker, and Jacoby Myers in that huddle with Mac Jones. Kendrick Bourne is just, not only has he not been involved, but then the other day we see him get basically kicked out of a practice period because he wasn't ready to go, and Bill Belichick was not happy about that. And then he got kicked out of practice for fighting. So really hard to find the positive moments for Bourne thus far in camp.
Yeah, and I had Bourne. I'm going to steal Phil's that he had when we put it on NBCSports.com. It was Malcolm Butler. You expected a little bit more of him. So Malcolm Butler, to me, would stand. But certainly Bourne. And I still stand by the fact he's going to be their most important. I should throttle that back. He's going to be a vital part of their offense. I thought he was going to be the most important part of their passing offense. He's going to be a vital part of their offense either way, but it's been a tough 3 weeks.
How about for you? Biggest disappointment, Andy?
Yeah, can I say both? Because I agree with the 2 distinguished men on the panel. Bourne, I thought, was going to have this breakout season. Everybody said, if you just give him more opportunities, he's going to be, his numbers will blow up because on limited opportunities, he made plays last year. And it looks like he's not ready to do that, certainly in August. And then for Butler, I know he's injured IR, but I'm not sure he was going to make the team. I thought he was going to be potentially an odd man out at corner. And I think in the offseason, when he comes back and they sign him, some people penciled him in as a starter, and I don't think that was going to happen. So that's a huge disappointment.
All right, there's at least 2 categories I definitely want to get to. Curran, most improved for you.
Marcus Jones. I mean, Jack Jones was the cornerback that we looked at as, he's a playmaker. He's built just like Asante Samuel. He's going to be in there. And during minicamp, he was. And we thought, okay, well, maybe they'll use this Marcus Jones kid as a slot receiver.
So even a rookie is most improved just from where he was to where he is now?
Andy, he wasn't on the field in the minicamps.
Not like he is now. He has when given the opportunity, made all kinds of plays. He tipped an interception to himself the other day. So I'm with you. I think he made Butler
expendable. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't an injury, but a lot easier to swallow.
Yeah, the most improved for me is actually Nelson Aguilar because it just never clicked for Aguilar last year. He was the best receiver on the field on Wednesdays, making contested catches as a guy who's had drops issues, we know, but he's been pretty consistent. He's been in there with the starters. He's been out on the practice field very consistently. Nelson Aguilar, to me, is worthy of this mention.
How about for you, Andy?
I'm going to go with Jalen Mills. And I know he was kind of their number 1 corner a year ago, but he's really, I feel like, evolved in that role and embraced it. He's almost become the Kendrick Bourne energy guy on the defense. You know, whether he's on the field making plays or other people are making plays, he's the one celebrating. And, you know, I thought against DJ Moore in the joint practices, he looked really good. And I know people still have doubts, but I just think if his name wasn't Jalen Mills and you didn't have a history to hold against him and just went on his body of work this summer, you'd be excited about your number one corner.
All right, I wanted to get this one in because Andy's answer is so shocking. Best coach in camp, Andy Hart.
I think the kids say I may not have understood the assignment here. I thought it was most interesting coach in camp. But
I guess you put. Tell everyone who you put.
Okay, but Joe Judge. And I think what's interesting is no experience calling plays. He's in the first preseason game and he goes wire to wire calling plays. He's evolving as Mac Jones' personal coach. He's been in the spotlight. I don't think he's fallen on his face. So I will sell the most impressive coach is Joe Judge, even though I thought it was most interesting.
Okay, I
don't think he misunderstood the assignment. I think he just had a hard time reading there. I think that's all it was.
Who'd you guys pick?
I went with Pellegrino, Mike Pellegrino, who's the cornerbacks coach, because you can't have all that improvement with those guys without a coach being responsible. So Mike Pellegrino, definitely.
I'm in the secondary, too. I actually went Brian Belichick. They've been so safety heavy with the defensive looks that they've thrown out there. He's been very busy, and there are a couple young guys there, Josh Bledsoe, Brendan Schooler, who've been impressive. He deserves some credit.
Thanks for understanding the assignment.
Yeah, no problem. I don't know what's the matter with the kid in the back.
Stay right there.
In the back row.
Andy Hart.